And that's why the president authorized the successful operation that was undertaken by the U.S. military.
So our next guest calls it a bad decision. Senator Rand Paul from Kentucky. Good morning, sir, and welcome back here. If what Robert O'Brien just said is true, how can you afford not to act?
I think the thing is you have to ask yourself and ask the general question, are attacks more or less likely now that Soleimani is gone? The person who has replaced him has been his assistant general for 22 years, is a hardliner, and now the whole country of Iran is consumed with revenge. So I think if you're asking yourself, will there be attacks on America? I think there's much more likely to be attacks now that with his death. But you also have to ask if anybody thinks that there's a possibility that diplomacy would work, how it's going to work when you kill the major general of another country. So I think what we've done is we've taken diplomacy off the table, and the only possibility now is military escalation. It's unknown how much military escalation, but I think there will be an escalation.
On that point, I think last night you called it the death of diplomacy, if I've got your quote right. Was there much diplomacy to begin with, Senator?
Well, there was with the Iran agreement. The Iran agreement wasn't perfect, and I was a critic of the Iran agreement. However, I think it was a big mistake to pull out of the Iran agreement. We should have tried to build upon the Iran agreement. We did that, but then we placed an embargo where Iran wasn't allowed to sell any goods internationally, including their main export of oil. An act of an embargo is like an act of war, and then to top that off, we've now killed one of their major generals. I think it is the death of diplomacy, and I see no way to get it back started again until sort of the revenge of the Iranian people is somehow sated. And I hate this. I hate that this is where we're going. I've been someone who has been for engagement, but there was much less killing, there was much less violence after the Iran agreement. In fact, there was a lull in a period in which I think we were headed towards a much more stable situation with Iran, and now I think it's gone, and I think it may be gone for a lifetime.
Senator, here is the president yesterday on Rush Limbaugh on the afternoon radio program. Just react to this comment here from President Trump.
He is responsible for the IEDs, those are the roadside bombs, and then the sister, which is the big one, the big version that actually knocks out tanks and kills everybody within earshot. He's responsible for all those incredible young people over at Walter Reed, and he should have been taken out a long time ago.
Would you take exception to that, Senator? You know that he's been a menace for 20 years.
There are a lot of reports that the IEDs and then the heightened version of the IEDs were coming from Iran. Whether or not one person is responsible for that is not something I have the knowledge to really tell you. But is Soleimani a bad guy? Yes. Is the guy that replaces him a bad guy? Yes. Was Gaddafi a bad guy? Was Hussein a bad guy? Yes. But we have to ask ourselves, and President Trump has said this millions of times or thousands of times, that Saddam Hussein was a bad guy, but taking him out destabilized the region. It is about the broader implications of killing someone, not whether they're evil or not. And so foreign policy can't be based on we're going to kill everyone who we believe is evil or bad in the world. There are thousands and thousands of such people. We have to look at the ramifications of what comes next. My fear is the ramifications of this killing will be more killing, and that it's really precluded the idea of having any kind of diplomatic relations with Iran. It was already difficult before this. Yeah. Now I think it's impossible.
Two more questions. Some are suggesting things go quiet for a time. Let's see who's right in the end. You say you got bad advice. What would you have done?
What, with regard to Soleimani? I think what I would have done is months ago, and this is what I encouraged the Trump administration, is months ago to renew diplomatic relations and have discussions. There were people, and there are moderates within Iran who were willing to have diplomacy. Their voices are completely squelched by this. So what we've done is we have empowered the hardliners. We've brought together people who might have had misgivings about the government. They are rallying around the Iranian flag now. So it's all going in the opposite direction. But there was a time, and there were people within the Iranian moderate community who did want to have discussions. That's over now. They cannot talk to us now because it's now them rallying around the flag. Anybody who is independent or indecisive or moderate is now rallying around the Iranian flag. And so, no, this has set us back a great deal. There were people who blamed the Iranian government for the economic problems they had. They had protests over gas prices a month or two ago. All those people now are rallying around the flag and rallying around what they perceive as an aggressive move by America.
Let's see where that goes. I'm going to squeeze in one more question here on impeachment.